arrested after President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his ruling ZANU-PF party were declared winners.
Outside court, MDC lawyers welcome the judgment. Optimistic, the accused will be acquitted.
The court has granted bail to all the accused persons. The court has indicated that it did not consider any of them to be a flight risk. The judgment was so brilliant, we're still trying to process it. It basically confirmed what we had submitted to the court, which is that the accused persons were definitely proper candidates for bail.
Violence erupted last week. 6 people were killed in an army clampdown on the protest. The opposition MDC disputes the outcome and says the vote was rigged. MDC leader Nelson Chamisa is expected to challenge the election results in court this week. The party claims security forces were abducting its members in night raids to intimidate them and to prevent it from challenging Mnangagwa's win in the presidential vote.
The court touched on the merits of the case and highlighted the glaring weaknesses of the state case, which we also highlighted during our submissions. We have no doubt that these people are going to be vindicated. These people are going to be acquitted. In fact, it is a waste of the state's resources to even contemplate prosecuting these people.
Zimbabwe's foreign minister denies the accusations, saying if there's any evidence, the military will investigate the cases. Under the constitution, a losing presidential candidate has 7 days from when a winner is declared to challenge the result. The court must rule within 14 days. Mnangagwa's inauguration will have to wait for the outcome of a court challenge. Ndundu Sitole, SABC News.
All right, we're now joined by political analyst Vusumuzi Sibanda. Very good evening to you, Vusi. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Good evening, Simpiwe. Thank you very much and good evening to your listeners.
False dawn or new dawn?
A dangerously false one, hey? There is no new dawn. I mean, it's the same faces, the same practices that we have seen in the last 38 years. And the trouble continues. The story of Zimbabwe is continuing. You know, we've got the opposition, members of the opposition politics being intimidated, being arrested. I just heard, you know, on my way here that Mr. Tendai Biti and Komichi of the MDC Alliance are now officially being, hunted by the police. In the last few days, we heard that Mr. Biti's car, one of his cars was involved in an accident and where one of his drivers were being chased by 4 cars. So basically what is happening is we've got these intimidation tactics, you know, that are continuing, you know, to go on. Because I think that Mr. Biti being a lawyer, for example, if they want him, I mean, they know where his offices are, surely they should just serve him, you know, either with a summons or something to tell him that he must come, you know, to the police station to answer for his charges. During the course of last week, we saw him being summoned and he went, and ultimately the police said, no, we're no longer looking for him. So this business of people being hunted and, you know, cars chasing each other, you know, we've got Hollywood movies, you know, taking place in Harare. And for whatever reason, the whole idea is just to try and intimidate people. The people that we have seen in court, you know, for example, the 24 that have been granted bail, it's not that the state has got a case that, you know, basically the idea is to intimidate people. You know, once you've been, you know, in holding cells for 2-3 days, you know, when you walk out of that, you don't want to do anything, you go to your house, you keep quiet, and everybody else that has seen them, you know, being incarcerated, you know, doesn't want to do anything anymore.
I mean, having said that, Vusi, where to from here by the MDC? I mean, what's the next position?
Well, look, I think we've heard that, you know, the MDC saying that, you know, they've got, you know, they are going to probably have a court challenge or any other means that they will try and challenge, you know, the results. But the issue is, I mean, they've got 7 days and their 7 days expires basically on Friday. And if they have any evidence, you know, one wonders, you know, what exactly it is that they're waiting for.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, they've been saying that they want to launch court processes, but they haven't done so. And I'm actually reading into Tendai Biti's statement that they don't have confidence in Zimbabwe's legal system.
Well, look, confidence or no confidence in the system, that's all they have. And if they have any evidence, they must have brought it forward to ensure that, you know, they kickstart, you know, the processes. The biggest problem that we have with the opposition as well is that the opposition has been taking people for a ride a little too long. You know, for example, when they say, look, we're not going to accept the results as long as they don't favor us. That statement, a lot of people might begin to read into it to say, but how do you go into an election and say you will not, you know, accept the results? And then you've got the case where they say they wanted to go to court to force ZEC, for example, you know, to release the presidential elections, results. we know that by law, ZEC had 5 days, which was up to Friday, basically to release, the results. On what leg they were standing on, or what is it that they were basing that argument on, that they would go to court and force ZEC, as they said, to release the results. That kind of misinformation, it makes the people begin to lose trust, in the opposition, that do they have a game plan? Do they know exactly what is happening? Do they know what they want to do? Do they have anything at all? It looks like they don't have it. Now, when you look at the strategy that the opposition, has, for example, you will realize that Dr. Coupe got 0.9% of the votes, and Mr. Mnangagwa won by 0.8%. The 9% that Dr. Coupe had, it's 45,000, and the 0.8% that Mnangagwa got, so that he's clear off from the runoff, is about 36,000. So you realize that in any case, the opposition is its own worst enemies. So if they had stayed together, if they had gone by the process of changing leadership properly, if they had sat down, if they felt, for example, that they did not have confidence in Dr. Coupe, and they sat down, in closed doors, and did not try to have, and break the party, we could be saying something quite different now, because we could be having a runoff. Yeah. We're not saying they would have won, but we could be having a runoff. And that could actually, drum up support. When people would see that, look, this is quite close. You could even have some, diehards and PF people maybe changing their minds in any case. So when we say where to right now, like I said last week, that maybe if they have got any evidence that will show that maybe the 0.8%, it was rigged or anything else, then they probably have a chance. Okay. But as it stands right now, we have had nothing. We've heard the story of the V11 forms. Nobody has come up with anything. And, Chamisa has gone on to say, look, ZEC has got the V11 forms. So they're no longer saying they've got the V11 forms. And we've seen on social media, Chamisa saying that he's going to have an inauguration. Trying to do another, Kenya false inauguration. I'm not sure who is it going to benefit, or what is it going to achieve. Because at the end of the day, these look like, now it looks like, child politics. We're being childish in a way. This is a very serious, situation that we have here. I think what Dr. Coupe said, I think it's today or yesterday, when she said, look, maybe it's time we accept that we have lost and we move on and try and see if we can map a strategy for 2023. Because as it stands right now, I don't think that, the opposition has got any other card to play.
Yeah, some of the international observers, including the EU, have been condemning the election violence that took place last week. What does this say about Emmerson Mnangagwa, or what are some of the far-reaching implications on his leadership? Remember that he declared that Zimbabwe is now open for business and is trying to right the wrongs of the past.
Well, look, I think one thing that is very interesting about all these observers and the things that basically they are saying is that they are condemning the brute force with which I think the army dealt with people. So when you look at the elections themselves, I don't think we've got anything much substantial that really has been said, except that, look, the conditions, the delay in the release of the presidential elections, which I think, they could try and say, look, we've got a legitimate, excuse, we're still verifying, and maybe the opposition was refusing to sign. So what we have right now is, we know Emmerson Mnangagwa is basically what he is. He is a criminal. And unfortunately, we cannot hide away from that. If you look at 2008, Emmerson Mnangagwa is on public media having said, he is the one who saved the day. Mtasa, who was the Minister of, Internal Affairs and whatever, was on his way to Mutare running away. And he called them back and said, come guys, let's work our way forward. So 2008, Emmerson Mnangagwa saved the day. And in 2016, Emmerson Mnangagwa, in anticipation of this day, when he was going to ascend and become ZANU-PF #1, he manipulated the constitution so that he is the one who handpicks, the Chief Justice. And that amendment, finally went through in 2017. Now, the president is the one who handpicks the Chief Justice and the judges. And these are the same people that make up, the leadership of the Judicial Services Commission, which is in charge of appointing people, or at least seconding people, to the president for all, Chapter 12 institutions and other, state organs of state.
So was Zimbabwe ready for a free and fair election? We have the same party taking over power. We have what's arguably called Robert Mugabe's offshoot in the person of Emmerson Mnangagwa taking over power. Was Zimbabwe ready for a free and fair election?
Zimbabwe was never ready for a free and fair election. And unfortunately, again, I think it comes back to the opposition. Because the opposition all this time, we were busy fighting each other. People were busy, trying to get, positions, position themselves, for a government, a new government, which in any case they knew that the framework, that would lead to free and fair elections was not there at all. Because when you look at the electoral laws, you look at, the organs of state, the appointments, in ZAC and other, areas of government that are very pivotal when it comes to elections, were always ZANU-PF people, ZANU-PF sympathizers, and they'd been appointed without any challenge. There is no basis on which anybody can easily challenge these appointments. For example, in the majority of the cases, when you look at lawyers, your fit and proper test principle does not really come out clearly in these appointments. So there is absolutely no way that the organs of state and even the Chapter 12 institutions that support democracy are going to be fair in Zimbabwe, because they will always be handpicked people that are ZANU-PF supporters.
So if you so profess that the more things change is the more they remain the same, should we brace ourselves for another 37 years of Emmerson Mnangagwa?
I think it's very true that we should brace ourselves for much, much longer this time, not only 37 years, because let me tell you this, Asimbiwe. We've got Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, who wants his 2 terms. I'm not sure if Mr. Chiwenga will allow him the two terms, because Mr. Chiwenga is ready to come in. And we've got SB Moyo, who's also ready to come in. Parents, Shiri also wants to come in. Valerio Sibanda in the army. So what we have here, we've got all these guys that are in the army. They are lining themselves to come into government. And unfortunately, we've got one of the biggest problems that we have, as Africa is, we have even failed to have a proper means or system of really saying, but look to our colleagues, especially head of states, you are very wrong. When you look at the 2003 African peer review mechanism, you would realize that that was something that was closer to try and say, but guys, can we really be honest with each other if you're doing things that are wrong? And tell you that, look, man, brother, whether it's behind doors and say, look, what you're doing is wrong. Because if we had that, then things would change. But as it is, there is no support system. I mean, we cannot rely on AU. There is no support system for Zimbabweans. So what we're going to see happening right now is we're going to see, the army going forward. And as you can see, Chiwenga is very brute. I mean, he's very arrogant.
Who calls the shots?
Well, it looks like Chiwenga is calling the shots. I mean, he saved Mnangagwa. I mean, in one of his rallies in Goko, he said it was himself and General Valerio Sibanda, that planned and orchestrated, how to save Mr. Mnangagwa. So Mr. Mnangagwa is there at the mercy of the army.
All right. Vusumuzi Sibanda, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
That was a political analyst, Vusumuzi Sibanda. All right, let's take a short break now. The Globe will be back right from this.